Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. The bells of victory are still ringing in our ears after the legendary reunion of Jian Wushuang and his father, Jian Nantian. But as the dust settles on the ruins of the capital, a new race against time begins. In our last episode, the divine sovereign was forced into retreat, but he left behind a poisoned legacy. Nantian's body is failing, his meridians saturated with the volatile energy of the eclipse pillar. Today, we step into the dawn of time. Chapters 261 through 265 follow our duo as they enter the land of the ancients, a prehistoric realm hidden in a fold of the great void where the spiritual energy is so thick it takes physical form. They seek the Primordial Lotus, the only plant capable of purifying a sword god's soul. But this land is ruled by the 7 Calamity Beasts, creatures that have never seen a human and don't intend to let them leave. The survival of the lineage is at stake. Chapter 261 starts right now. Chapter 261. I just need 5 years. Besides his father Jian Nantian, Jian Wushuang cared for his brothers most in this world. Jian Wushuang regarded Su Ru as his biological sister. No matter who would harm Su Ru, he would defeat him first. I can see that the little girl you mentioned possesses a special constitution. Jian Nantian also looked over and said indifferently, generally, the more special a constitution, the greater possibility of being used. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's face sunk suddenly, looked to Wang Yuan and said, Wang Yuan, you are the young master of the alchemy school. Could you manage to protect the 4th sister in secret? Although Ice Nether Valley cannot yet be compared with my alchemy school, it also is a large sect in the area. Su Ru stays in the Ice Nether Valley, but the experts of our alchemy school have no chance to enter. How could I protect her? Wang Yuan shook his head. But I will try my best to supervise Yi Chen. Once I find that he mistreats Su Ru, I will instantly take action. It's no big deal to look for an opportunity to kill him. Jian Wushuang couldn't help shrugging. As Su Ru was staying in the Ice Nether Valley now, he was unable to help her and had to depend on Wang Yuan. Dad, what are you going to do next? Jian Wushuang looked at Jian Nantian again. I'm going to do one thing, Jian Nantian said directly. What is it? Asked Jian Wushuang. This thing is related to your mother, said Jian Nantian. Mom. Jian Wushuang felt rather surprised, and merely said, didn't Mom die? His mother, Ji Wuming, was killed by the experts of Blood Feather Tower many years ago. It's Weiyue who told you that your mother died, right? Jian Nantian looked at Jian Wushuang and said. Yes, Jian Wushuang said and seriously nodded. This thing news, including the genocidal killing of Ji clan, was heard from his aunt, Ji Weiyue. It's understandable. Jian Nantian shook his head and smiled. At that time, Ji clan was implicated due to me and involved in genocidal killing. But Ji Weiyue was not there, so she didn't witness the disaster, which made her think that all clansmen of Ji clan, including your mother, were killed by the Blood Feather Tower. However, your mother didn't die. What? Jian Wushuang was astonished. His mother was still alive? Mom. Jian Wushuang felt overwhelmed and murmured. He had never seen his mother since he was young. Therefore, he always felt curious about his mother. At that time, when he heard the news from Ji Weiyue that his mother died, he was upset and indignant. But now Jian Nantian told him that his mother, who he had never seen, was still alive. Wuming is really alive. Jian Nantian was narrating. Originally, in the massacre, a lot of experts and clansmen of Ji clan were killed. However, only your mother survived and was caught by a young man. A young man? Jian Wushuang was shocked. I will never forget that man. Jian Nantian's indifferent gaze suddenly became a little ruthless. A heavy killing intent appeared around him, which made the whole room become cold. The young man, with a golden robe, looked gentle and cultivated. There was a horrent and bloody red scar between his eyebrows, which might be a sword scar. He is very strong. The original Ji clan was one of the 8 top clans in the Qianzong dynasty and ranked high. Even though the Blood Feather Tower took a long time and paid a high price to destroy Ji clan. But it was this man who killed all the high-ranking members of Ji clan without any effort, leaving only your mother who was taken away by him. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. Killing many high-ranking members without any effort? Someone with such a strength might be an expert of the Saint realm at least. Who is he? Jian Wushuang asked. I don't know. Jian Nantian shook his head. His identity was very special. Even the Tower Master of Bloodfeather Tower didn't know his true identity. However, I met him again half a year ago. Half a year ago? Jian Wushuang was intrigued by this information. Half a year ago, he stayed in the Ancestors' Land and received the first test of the Ancestors' Land. When I met him at that time, his exposed strength made him unfathomable. I don't know how he took away my sword soul, Jian Nantian said seriously. What is this? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Sword soul? Dad, your sword soul was taken away by him? Jian Wushuang was really shocked. He and his father both awakened sword soul. When in the Ancestors' Land, he knew from Jin Ling that only the real genius of sword principle would be qualified to awaken the sword soul. Jian Wushuang believed that someone would be able to destroy the sword soul, but it was much harder to take it away. It was just like that the cultivation of spiritual power a warrior gained with great efforts was completely stolen and transplanted into another man. Such a method was incredible. The means of that man was really extraordinary, and his strength was even more unfathomable. Jian Nantian said seriously, I'm afraid that I will fail when fighting him, but I must find out his identity and your mother's whereabouts. I don't feel guilty about anything, except for your mother and Ji clan. I will try my best to find your mother. I see. Jian Wushuang wore a serious look. Dad, I will go with you. You? Jian Nantian looked at Jian Wushuang, shook his head and smiled. You are too young and weak to help me. But, Dad. Jian Wushuang was anxious. When he opened his mouth, Jian Nantian interrupted him suddenly, and then said with a grin, as long as you withstand 3 strikes from me, you can go with me. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Even Lin Xiaonan, who reached divine transcendence and formed a saintly body, could not withstand a strike from Jian Nantian. It was impossible for Jian Wushuang to survive 3 strikes. Jian Nantian said with a smile, Shuang'er, if you really want to help me, cultivate yourself and leave the Qianzong dynasty to go to the vast expanse of the world. Only in this way could the nestling become an eagle, and you have a long way to go. The Holy Emperor Palace, I left it for you. That's your first target. If you could destroy the Holy Emperor Palace within 10 years, you are really qualified to help me. Destroying the Holy Emperor Palace within 10 years? Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. 10 years is too long. I just need 5 years. Chapter 262, Tang of the East. 5 years? Jian Nantian looked at Jian Wushuang. After perceiving the determination in his gaze, he could not help but nod. I'm looking forward to it. On hearing this, Wang Yuan could not help but acclaim. In the whole Nanyang continent, I'm afraid that only Jian Wushuang and his father dare to say that they would trample Holy Emperor Palace underfoot in 5 years. Jian Nantian turned over his hand and took a manual out of his interspatial ring. Here you are. This is. Jian Wushuang took it with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. A top expert kept a record of some tips about the origin. I found it when traveling around. Now it's useless for me, but will be helpful for you, Jian Nantian said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and immediately accepted it. Jian Nantian brought a pot of wine and said, Shuang'er, let's have a drink. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded and took the wine pot. After drinking a pot of wine, Jian Nantian smiled slightly and said, Shuang'er, you need to depend on yourself from now on. I hope you will trample Holy Emperor Palace underfoot in 5 years. I'll wait for you. Then his body flashed, and he left with the wind. Jian Nantian desired freedom. He was destined to rove the world. Jian Wushuang stood still in the room and watched his father disappear with tears in his eyes. I'll catch up with you in 5 years. Jian Wushuang thought secretly, with his hands clenched. After a while, Jian Wushuang and Wang Yuan sat down at the same time. Third younger brother, what are you going to do? Wang Yuan asked. Jian Wushuang's face fell and answered, I originally planned to look for a strong sect to improve my strength, but now I have offended Holy Emperor Palace. I'm afraid few sects will accept me in the Nanyang continent. He spoke the truth. Holy Emperor Palace was known as the overlord of the Nanyang continent, so few sects dared to protect the person that was being hunted by Holy Emperor Palace. Alchemy School was able to protect you, but it's up to my father. I've mentioned you to him, yet he just smiled, without saying a word, Wang Yuan said discontentedly. Jian Wushuang kept silent. Third younger brother, you cannot enter those sects, but I know a place where you can practice. It might be not worse than those sects you want to join, Wang Yuan suddenly said. Where? Jian Wushuang immediately looked toward him. Tang of the East, the first empire in the Nanyang continent, Wang Yuan replied seriously. The first empire? Jian Wushuang asked with a doubt. The Tang dynasty was known as the first empire in the whole Nanyang continent. It covers a vast land, which was over 10 times larger than any other large empires. Moreover, it's full of experts, so it's much stronger than the other old sects. The forces of the Nanyang continent belong to 1 palace, 1 school, 3 valleys, and 4 temples, 8 sects, and thousands of dynasties. In fact, as for the overall strength, the Tang dynasty is definitely superior to the 3 valleys. Even our alchemy school and Holy Emperor Palace hold the Tang dynasty in awe, Wang Yuan said. It's so strong? Jian Wushuang was surprised secretly. The Tang dynasty has another 2 names, the Slaughterous dynasty and the Country of Death. Wang Yuan said in a low voice. He continued, the other empires of the Nanyang continent follow the law of the jungle, but they have a bottom line and set some rules for themselves. In contrast, there are no rules or bottom lines in the Tang dynasty. The strong have all the say. As long as you are strong, no one cares even if you slaughter in the palace of the Tang dynasty. If you're strong enough, you can slaughter thousands of warriors or wipe out cities one by one as you like. No rules or constraints. It's up to your strength. Therefore, it could be compared to Shiraba. The more chaotic a place is, the more appealing it will be for militant warriors. A large number of warriors go to the Tang dynasty every day. Many warriors die there, so it's known as the Country of Death. It's a paradise for killers and hell for the merciful. A glimpse of crazy battle intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The Slaughterous dynasty, the Country of Death. It's a paradise for killers and hell for the merciful? There exists an empire like that in the Nanyang continent? It's crazy and horrible in the Tang dynasty. With countless experts, it would be the most suitable place for cultivation. The second younger brother has been brought there by Winemaster, Wang Yuan said. The second younger brother has gone there too? Jian Wushuang raised his brows. In fact, he was already at fever pitch. He was adept at sword principle. Sword principle was used for killing. He also comprehended slaughter source. He was born to be a fighter. The place might be unacceptable for ordinary warriors, but it was a place he was longing for. Without the threat from Holy Emperor Palace, he would desire to go there. Now since he was completely targeted by Holy Emperor Palace and places for his practice were limited, the Tang dynasty would be his best choice. I have decided to go to the Tang dynasty, Jian Wushuang said seriously. Wang Yuan shrugged his shoulders, as he knew Jian Wushuang would go. Third younger brother, if you go to the Tang dynasty, you'll pass by the northern region. I happen to have one thing that needs your help. I believe you won't refuse my request, Wang Yuan said with a smile. Oh, say it. Jian Wushuang looked toward Wang Yuan. Wang Yuan began to narrate the whole story. You must know the whole setup of the Nanyang continent. Our alchemy school has kept a delicate relationship with Holy Emperor Palace. We've never started a war, but we have an explicit or implicit contest with each other. The Wilderness Sword Sect, one of the top sects. The disciples of the Wilderness Sword Sect have been disappointing these years. The sect has declined, so it will be expelled from the 8 sects, but during this period, it seems that the Wilderness Sword Sect got support from Holy Emperor Palace because of you. Our alchemy school doesn't want to see the Wilderness Sword Sect become the Holy Emperor Palace's affiliate, so we want to remove it using special tactics. We'll take action in a month, so I need your help. Do you want to go against Holy Emperor Palace? You can wipe out the Wilderness Sword Sect first at your convenience. Chapter 263, A Spar. Wilderness Sword Sect? Jian Wushuang smiled. He might hesitate to launch an attack on other sects. But he had a grudge against the Wilderness Sword sect. During the Eastermost hunting, Mo Lingtian wanted to strike him to death. Then in the Heartless Island, the experts of the Wilderness Sword sect wanted to kill him. Now this sect followed Holy Emperor Palace. Therefore, Jian Wushuang was willing to attack the Wilderness Sword sect. Well, I'm in. Jian Wushuang nodded with a smile. But what can I do? This is a token. Take it and go find the Deluo Heaven sect in the northern region in a month. You need to give the token to the 9th Elder Ling Han. Then he'll tell you what to do. Wang Yuan smiled. Deluo Heaven sect? Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Okay. When are you going to leave? Wang Yuan asked. I'll wait until I get better, Jian Wushuang answered. It's okay. You just need to reach there in a month. I'll order someone to give you a map of the Nanyang continent. You might need it, Wang Yuan said with a smile. After staying in Mansion of Sword Marquis for a day, Wang Yuan left for alchemy school with his underlings. Jian Wushuang left the Quanzhong dynasty and started his real trip to train after a few days. The young eagles spread their wings to travel into the vast sky. A month later, it was still chilly, while snow covered the ground. The northern region was located in the north of the Nanyang continent and covered a vast land. There were more than 100 dynasties in the northern region. More than 10 of them were large empires. The northern region also had a powerful sect. This was one of the 8 top sects, the Wilderness Sword sect. In recent years, experts and disciples from the Wilderness Sword sect had not made any progress, so the strength of the sect had been going backwards, its position hanging by a thread. In the northern region, there was another sect which could fight against the Wilderness Sword sect. That was the Deluo Heaven sect. The Deluo Heaven sect was at the peak of the mountains. Jian Wushuang with a long sword on his back was walking slowly on the road to the Deluo Heaven sect. Deep footprints were left behind him in the snow. Momentum. Lift heavy weights easily and shake heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang was studying the manual his father gave him while walking. The manual provided some tips about the origin written by a top expert. The manual mentioned source enlightenment was divided into 3 levels. The first level referred to momentum. The second level referred to domain. The third level referred to pinnacle. Jian Wushuang started to comprehend world origin and slaughter origin, so he had not reached the first level momentum yet. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang stopped walking, with his triple kill sword out of the sheath. Then he began to practice swordsmanship alone in the snowfield. Shua! The sword light was waving slowing, with little strength. Every streak of sword light lashed out and made the snowflakes drift beside him. At this moment, 2 figures were just flying over his head. One of the 2 women looked less than 30 years old. We're going back to the sect. You'd better behave yourself after returning. Although you didn't make a big trouble this time, you've caused our sect some trouble. You'll be punished, but it won't be severe, the white-clothed woman said. I know, senior sister. I'll accept my punishment after returning to our sect. You've said many times along the road. The green-haired maiden, less than 20-year-old, said and stuck out her tongue. Suddenly, she glanced at the ground and happened to see Jian Wushuang, who was practicing swordsmanship in the snowfield. Senior sister, look, there's a man who's practicing swordsmanship. The green-haired maiden cried out. The white-clothed woman looked downward and could not help but raise her brows. The man looks very young. His swordsmanship is quite slow. I haven't studied swordsmanship, but I know it's quite ordinary. The green-haired maiden curled her lip. Shut up. The white-robed woman rebuked her. You don't understand. His swordsmanship looks slow, but every stroke is very delicate. I'm afraid that his strength is higher than mine. What? The green-haired maiden asked in surprise. It's not far from our Deluo Heaven sect. This man practices swordsmanship here. Does he want to come to learn kung fu? The white-robed woman could not help but think. She thought the young expert of sword principle must want to join the Deluo Heaven sect. Senior sister, this man's cultivation of sword principle is not weaker than yours. The green-haired maiden looked toward her senior sister. I don't know, but why not have a try? The white-robed woman laughed and then moved downwards. Jian Wushuang was absorbed in practice for a while, and then he stopped. Shake heaven and earth. How does it work? Jian Wushuang withdrew his sword and was still puzzled at it. The moment he raised his head, he just saw two women landing on the ground. They were quite pretty, especially the white-robed woman. She was a great beauty, with black brows, big eyes, red lips, white teeth, and fair skin. Even Jian Wushuang could not help but praise her to the bottom of his heart. Jian Wushuang was more surprised at their cultivation. The green-robed maiden was around 20-year-old and had reached the initial Yin Void realm. The white-robed woman was less than 30-year-old. But Jian Wushuang was not sure about her cultivation, at least the profound Yang Void realm. In the Qianzong dynasty, it was almost impossible to see someone that had such cultivation of spiritual power at her age. I've been a person living at the bottom of a well. Jian Wushuang could not help but sigh. I'm Jian Yi from the Deluo Heaven sect. The white-robed woman stood in front of Jian Wushuang and introduced herself modestly. Jian Wushuang touched his nose and smiled slightly. I'm Swordsman. Swordsman? Jian Yi frowned, but immediately said with a smile, I saw you perform swordsmanship. You must be adept at sword principle, and I've also studied sword principle, so I want to learn some moves from you. Would you like to spar with me? Chapter 264. Throw him out. Spar with me? An interested smile showed on Jian Wushuang's face. Jian Yi explained, take it easy, I just want to have a competition with you in martial arts, nothing to do with cultivation of spiritual power. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Sparing when one ventured outside was normal. Besides, the white-robed woman Jian Yi standing in front of him was humble. It was hard to refuse her. Okay, please. A cyan long sword showed in her hands. Sir, be careful. After she had said that, wow. In a second her figure turned into a sharp sword, breaking through the void and hurtling at Jian Wushuang. The sword light seemed to penetrate everything. Seeing that, Jian Wushuang couldn't help marveling at Jian Yi's outstanding mastery of sword principle. He moved and brandished his triple-kill sword casually. An ordinary move hit right on the sword edge of Jian Yi's long sword and deflected her attack instantly. Then 3 more moves went towards Jian Yi, in succession. It horrified Jian Yi. She brandished her long sword and barely managed to block those attacks, while her body took a few steps backward. His swordsmanship is so fast. Stabilizing herself, Jian Yi looked over at Jian Wushuang. I have to go all out to beat him. As soon as she finished saying this, a mighty sword essence burst from her. It turned into a fog, coming at Jian Wushuang. What's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the grey fog with confusion. The next moment he felt traces of killing intent from it, but he found that he was trapped and couldn't move. Such a strange skill. Jian Wushuang was shocked by this. Jian Yi attacked again. Bang! Her body suddenly flew at Jian Wushuang, then her long sword turned into a flowing light rushing towards him at an amazing speed. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly and lifted up his long sword, in which a trace of the origin of the world was contained. Clang! Jian Yi's cyan long sword was knocked off, and her body was also beaten back. Coming to a stop, Jian Yi looked at Jian Wushuang with shocked eyes. Though I have used Sword Realm, I still lose completely. His swordsmanship is so strong. What's the skill of turning sword essence into fog? Suddenly Jian Wushuang asked her. Sword fog. Jian Yi told him, one move of Sword Realm, which is a sword principle secret in Deluo Heaven sect. Sword Realm? Jian Wushuang felt curious. It was so special. Trapped in the fog, he found it hard to move. If he didn't use his origin power, he could not defeat her so easily. You said that you were a disciple of Deluo Heaven sect. I'm just about to go there. Would you mind leading the way? Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Both Jian Yi and the green-haired maiden behind her smiled. They thought Jian Wushuang was going to Deluo Heaven sect to learn, and it was a good thing, especially after they saw that he was quite good at sword principle. We welcome you. Please follow us. Jian Yi said this. Then she and the green-haired maiden led Jian Wushuang along. Soon they came to an old sect. Located at the top of a mountain, the old sect was magnificent, much larger and more inspiring than those Jian Wushuang had seen before. Led by Jian Yi, Jian Wushuang wasn't stopped by the gatekeepers of Deluo Heaven sect. They came to a hall. Please wait here for a minute." After saying this, Jian Yi and that green-haired maiden left. A while later, Jian Yi and a black-haired elder came. "Jian Yi, is he the one you told me who is much stronger than you in sword principle?" The black-haired elder looked at Jian Wushuang. "Yes." Jian Yi nodded. Then she said to Jian Wushuang, "Swordsman, this is our law-enforcing elder, Elder Qiu Ying." "Oh, law-enforcing elder?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew there were law-enforcing elder in older sects, such as the law-enforcing elder in Wilderness Sword sect. They were more like senior servants dealing with affairs of the sect, but they were actually not the top executives of the old sects. There was house of elders in these old sects, and these elders were top powerhouses and the core of an old sect. "Nice to meet you, Elder Qiu," Jian Wushuang said politely. "Make yourself at home." Qiu Ying waved his hands and sat on a chair in front of him casually. "Jian Yi said that your swordsmanship was good, judging from your age. You came here for a coach, right?" "No." Jian Wushuang shook his head and replied. "No." Jian Yi was surprised, and Qiu Ying frowned as well. "What are you coming for?" Qiu Ying asked. "I was asked by someone to visit Ling Han, the 9th elder of Deluo Heaven sect." "Is he here?" Jian Wushuang said. "The 9th elder?" Qiu Ying's face changed, looking Jian Wushuang up and down, then sneered, "Young man, is Elder Ling Han someone you can see if you want to? Even it were me, I see him only a few times every year. I was asked to see him, besides, he would have been told that I would come." Jian Wushuang said with a calm voice. "Enough." Qiu Ying shouted in a deep voice. He sneered, "Young man, how could you boast without shame at such a young age? Elder Ling Han does not know you and apparently, you are here to make trouble. Throw him out." "Elder Qiu." Jian Yi was a little worried. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes slightly. Qiu Ying was kind before he knew that he didn't come here for a teacher but was looking for Elder Ling Han. 2 disciples outside the gate came in. Seeing that, Jian Wushuang's face turned cold, then he sneered, "I didn't expect that the Deluo Heaven sect would treat a guest like this. I will leave." Jian Wushuang wasn't in the mood to explain. He stopped just before leaving. "By the way, this is the token, proving that I have come and kept my promise, but you didn't believe it." Jian Wushuang threw the token which Wang Yuan gave him to Qiu Ying, then he left directly. Chapter 265, An Apology. After Jian Wushuang left, Elder Qiu, Swordsman might really come to visit Elder Ling Han. "Isn't it a little overbearing to throw him out without checking?" Jian Yi said in a low voice. "Jian Yi, you think highly of him. He is so young, how could he have a relationship with Elder Ling Han? It must be because he heard about Elder Ling Han and came here to acknowledge Elder Ling Han as a master. Many came for that each year." Qiu Ying didn't take it seriously. Besides, Elder Ling Han and other Deluo Heaven sect elders are busy in an event. Even it was me, having no chance to see him, let alone him, how is it possible? As for the token, Qiu Ying glanced at the token Jian Wushuang threw on the ground with disdain. While he looked at the token more carefully, his face changed at once. "The token." Qiu Ying stared at it, "is the Grand Elixir token." Qiu Ying was struck dumb with amazement. No matter Holy Emperor Palace or Alchemy School, they had their own token as a pledge. There was a special mark on it. No one dared to counterfeit it. Holy Emperor token represented Holy Emperor Palace and Grand Elixir token represented the Alchemy School. Could it be the Grand Elixir token? Qiu Ying was shocked with mouth and eyes opening wide. A moment later, dozens of roars in Deluo Heaven sect rose to the sky. "Hurry up, act separately, find him." They were led by a silver-robed and gray-haired elder, who was the 9th elder of Deluo Heaven sect Ling Han. However, his face was filled with sadness now. You were so overbearing to throw him out without asking clearly. When did the people of Deluo Heaven sect become so rampant? Qiu Ying, you better pray he hasn't gone far, so that Deluo Heaven sect could make up for this. Otherwise, you will be sacked from the law-enforcing elder position. Ling Han scolded him with a raspy voice, such a good-for-nothing. Scolded by Ling Han heavily, Qiu Ying lowered his head and dared not to look at him at all. He knew he was in trouble this time. He had never thought that such a young man who was about 20 years old at most could have such a background. Elder Ling Han, there he is. Jun Yi, who followed as well, shouted suddenly. Ling Han immediately looked down and found a black-robed man with a long sword on his back sitting quietly at the top of a mountain, who seemed to be waiting for them. Thank God, he is waiting for us. Things aren't going so bad. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Jian Wushuang. Then he and others landed slowly in front of Jian Wushuang. Fellow swordsman, I am Ling Han. Ling Han said with a humble voice. Jian Wushuang, sitting cross-legged on the ground, opened his eyes slowly. Then he closed his eyes again after glancing at them, saying, such an arrogant Deluo heaven sect. It's hard to imagine what would become of you if you are one of the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent. I must give you an apology for the oversight. Ling Han played up to Jian Wushuang with a smile, then he glanced at Qiu Ying next to him. Come over here. Qiu Ying walked to Jian Wushuang in dejection and apologized. Mr. Swordsman, please excuse me for having offended you just now, I'm so sorry. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, glanced at Qiu Ying. Deluo Heaven Sect is big and well off and will soon replace Wilderness Sword Sect as one of the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent. How could you care about a young man? Qiu Ying was embarrassed. Qiu Ying. Ling Han looked at Qiu Ying and shouted, from now on, you are removed from law-enforcing elder and will be punished by sweeping the floor in front of the mountain gate. Even if a normal gold core disciple comes to learn, you have to lead him into the sect respectfully. If you do it well, in 3 years, I will consider reinstating you, understand? Hearing this, Qiu Ying stood in astonishment, then he nodded vigorously. After punishing Qiu Ying, Ling Han turned to Jian Wushuang with a smile. Fellow swordsman, what do you think now? Jian Wushuang raised his head, looked at Ling Han in surprise and then nodding slightly. You are a reasonable elder in Deluo Heaven Sect. Ha ha, since we have cleared the air, would you like to come over to have a chat? Ling Han invited him. Okay, Jian Wushuang didn't refuse him this time. Led by Ling Han, Jian Wushuang went to the Deluo Heaven Sect and walked into the same hall. In the hall, Ling Han and Jian Wushuang sat on 2 chairs respectively. Qiu Ying, Jun Yi, and others were waiting outside the hall. Swordsman, you are the one alchemy school sent to give Deluo Heaven Sect a helping hand, aren't you? Ling Han looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. But what can I do? Jian Wushuang was curious about that. Deluo Heaven Sect, which was strong enough to be a match for Wilderness Sword Sect, had lots of powerhouses including some in the Saint Realm. Is there anything which they could not do that needed his help? Here is the thing, Ling Han explained to him. You might know that this time Deluo Heaven Sect and Alchemy School are going to root out Wilderness Sword Sect together. However, not only does it require absolute power, but also a reasonable excuse is needed. After all, it is one of the 8 top sects. An excuse? Jian Wushuang frowned. Alchemy School and Deluo Heaven Sect could root Wilderness Sword Sect out directly. Why would you need an excuse? Ha ha, you might not know that the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent were a group. If Deluo Heaven Sect and Alchemy School rooted Wilderness Sword Sect out without any excuse, the Deluo Heaven Sect would be expelled by the other 7 top sects and cannot rank among the 8 top sects. Besides, Wilderness Sword Sect is backed by Holy Emperor Palace. If we attack Wilderness Sword Sect without any reason, Holy Emperor Palace will not leave the matter at that. Ling Han explained. So is that it? Jian Wushuang understood. But how do you find an excuse? And with that narrow escape from the jaws of the Sky-Rending Python, we conclude chapter 265. Wushuang and his father have reached the outer gardens of the Primordial Lotus, but the mysterious girl, now revealed as the spirit of the skill, has felt a disturbance. The Divine Sovereign's recovery in the Origin Sea is happening faster than expected, and he has sent his final shadow assassins to ensure Nantian never wakes from his healing slumber. The hunt has followed them into the Garden of the Gods. Join us next time for chapters 266 through 270, as Wushuang defends his father during the Lotus Fusion and faces the Assassin of the Void. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you're loving this primal arc, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us, which Calamity Beast was the most terrifying?